Hi, my name is Michael from Soares Landscaping. Whenever we start a conversation with a new prospective client, we get the same questions usually over and over. Here are some of the questions we hear. So who are we a good fit for? Typically the client that really enjoys what we're going to do for them and that we have a pleasure working with is somebody that will allow us to take a holistic approach to their project. Meaning if they've got a backyard that they want to renovate, that they're allowing us to look at, for the most part, the entirety of the backyard, even if we're not building in a section of it, to at least give thought that if something should be there or if it shouldn't. To take a look at their lifestyle and to pick the features that are going to best suit them and give them the experiences that they're looking for and that they can enjoy for a lifetime. So then typically the conversation will digress into a situation of, is this valuable for the experience we're trying to create? Is this valuable for me, my family, my friends when they're hanging out, or is it not? Rather than it being a conversation, well, is that the cheapest option? Generally, when you're trying to create an experience, it has less to do with price and more about value. Is it giving you what you want, or is it not? If it's not, take it out. If it is, find a way of keeping it in the project. So who are we not a good fit for? Well, typically it has to do a little bit with the client and a little bit with the project. If you're looking to maybe just come put a band-aid on something, meaning you have an existing patio, but it's kind of falling apart and all you want to kind of do is fix it up a little bit, that's usually not something that we're really good at. What we're best at is coming in to reimagine the space and build something new and get rid of problems. When every single decision in a project is based on price, you are sacrificing beyond the point of compromise and typically not going to be left with something that's actually meeting your needs. So it's not to say that compromise doesn't happen in a project. Of course it does. You know, instead of having the $10,000 fire feature, maybe we have the $5,000 one. It meets the goal. But if everything has to be the $1,500 fire feature, the $1,500 patio, the $1,500 garden, you're going to be left with a skeleton and not something really desirable that's going to want to pull you out there. And that's something that we might not do because we treat every project like it's our own home and something that we would enjoy just as much as you. There are four main components that affect cost and pricing, and that is the size of a project, the logistics of completing that project, the materials selected, and the amount of features in the project. The first one, in no particular order, is size. Of course, the larger the yard, the larger the property, the more area we can work with, the bigger each feature is. Of course, the higher the price that project is going to be. The second factor that affects cost and pricing is the logistics of a project. A property that's in a subdivision that doesn't have a lot of room between the houses or has no exterior access to the backyard is going to increase the logistical cost of a project, meaning that materials might have to come into the yard by hand, or we can only access the yard with certain pieces of equipment. Likewise, on the flip side, a farm property with no fences and unlimited access means that any type of equipment can be used on that project. And the bigger the equipment, the faster material is going to be handled. The faster the project is completed, the less labor involved, therefore decreasing the cost of that project. The next factor that will affect the cost and price of a project is material selections. In the example of a driveway, there are three main ways you're going to do a driveway: with asphalt, with poured concrete, or with concrete paver. And all three of those are going to have drastic differences in terms of budget. A asphalt driveway that's brand new is probably going to be $5,000 or less. Concrete driveway of the same size, maybe going to be $8,000 to $12,000. And in concrete pavers, it's likely going to be $20,000 to $30,000. The final main factor that affects cost and pricing of a landscape project is rich features, kind of the bells and whistles, if you will. You can have, the example I will give you is you can have a standard fire pit, built out of a steel frame and just burn some wood. Or you can have the Cadillac version, custom stone fire pit built with maybe precast segmental walls or natural stone. That'll give you good range, between the very low end and the very high end. what does the typical project cost? Well, I'll break down what the typical project costs into 3 categories. One being a front yard project, a backyard project, and an entire property renovation. The typical front yard will range anywhere from $10,000 for maybe a simple front entrance redo, meaning walkway, front steps, front porch, maybe some garden, all the way to $50,000. And $50,000 might be front driveway, front entrance, porch, garden, lighting, pretty much the full 9 yards for the average property. For a backyard, those will typically range from $25,000 to $100,000. And that'll range from patios and gardens and lighting, all the way up to maybe adding a shed or a cabana, some fire features, maybe a water feature. Now the caveat to that is whether it's a pool project. Because of course, if you're doing a pool landscape, you'll probably have that $100,000 backyard, plus up to $100,000 for the fiberglass pool itself as well. Now for a full property renovation, you can blend the two. Those projects will typically range from $100,000 up to $500,000 for the much larger feature-rich projects. The length of a project can last 1 or 2 days or could last up to 2 months, all varying on how large the scope of the project is and if we have everything prepared to do that project, and if there's specialty trades involved like electrician or a gas tech. The most common question we get is, when can we get on the schedule? Well, that answer varies from project to project, but typically a project is not scheduled until the pre-construction phase of the planning is completed, meaning that we've received all the materials and they come to our property and we store them until we're ready to go. That locates and permits have been approved and received, and that our specialty trades such as electricians and natural gas techs are ready to go. So we could have a project scheduled in as little as 1 week for very small projects. Otherwise, it could take up to 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get a project on the schedule. So factors that can impact the time it takes to schedule will be if there's multiple features in a project, such as if there's a cabana, a pool, and landscape, or if there's multiple contractors on a project, such as electricians, natural gas, deck and fence builder, and our team. The more complex it gets, the longer it takes to complete pre-construction, the longer it could take until it's officially on the schedule for the official start date.